Hi everyone, welcome to Beyond the Evidence. This is the channel where justice matters. My name is Barb. I am a true crime fanatic, and I love to dig deeper into the mysteries of unsolved cases. Join me as we search for missing persons, uncover the clues in unsolved murders, follow along with jury trials, and we'll be a voice for the voiceless. I'll share with you the facts, the theories, the clues, the evidence, and the controversies that surround these cases. This is Beyond the Evidence. Hello everyone, good evening. My phone is blowing up, it keeps dinging, just ignore it. It's been a very long day. I have a lot of notes to go through from today. Crazy day. Who would have ever thought that we would actually have a full jury, 12 members, and alternates already in one day? I'll get to all the questions, but just want to say I was up at 4:45 this morning. Takes me an hour and a half to drive to Fort Wayne. Got there about 7:30. Got in the courtroom, doors opened at 8. Got in there, went through security, and got in the courtroom. And I can tell you that we sat in that courtroom all day long. We had one 10-minute break. That was it. One 10-minute break. So it was long enough to run outside, have a cigarette, go to the bathroom, and come right back in. Didn't have anything to drink today. Didn't have a lunch today. I ate a granola bar in the courthouse courtroom because I could tell my blood sugar was getting low from not eating all day. But we made it through. Got to see Barbara McDonald and Susan Hendrick today. So that was very nice to talk to those ladies. Yes, I was at the Allen County Courthouse for jury selection today. The information we were given right away is that we were going to have 50 jurors in the morning and 50 jurors in the afternoon. For the prosecution, Nick McClellan was there, Luttrell was there, and that lady attorney Diener was there. For the defense, it was Rozzi, Baldwin, Auger, and Richard Allen. Some of the people that I saw besides Barbara McDonald and Susan Hendrick were Murder Sheet, Aspen, Rafael Sanchez, Russ McQuaid. I didn't get to talk to all of them, but I did see them. And I met a new individual. She has on Facebook. She does all of her stuff on Facebook, and it's called Chewing the Facts. And that's Jeanette. So, lots of news crews also there today. And news personalities. So, they brought Richard Allen in, first time seeing him. Definitely, you see the videos and everything, and he's a small man. It's, my height, maybe just a little bit taller. He was wearing a light purple button-up shirt with khaki pants. Looks good. Clean haircut. Baldwin was talking to him quite a bit after he came in. And then he sat next to Auger. So, to explain the layout of the courtroom, I'm facing forward, okay? In front of me, we were in a small section that was roped off for media, okay? There was probably about 25, 30 seats. And if you're facing forward, up in front of the room is the judge's bench, okay? On the right-hand side, you have the seating for all of the bailiffs and court staff and things like that. And then in front of them, pointed to the left, was the defense team. Rozzi, Baldwin, Auger, Richard Allen. So then on the left-hand side, pointing towards the judge, is the prosecution team. So they had Richard Allen pointed to the left right at the jury box, which is an odd way of doing things. I don't see that too much. I've seen it a couple times on trials, but not very often. Okay. But no, that's not where the trial's being held, Melissa. This is just for jury selection. And then to our left, the potential jurors were seated in a numerical order. So each side was granted a mini open. So the judge allowed them 5 minutes each to give a statement to this jury pool before any jurors went into the jury box. So we need 12 jurors and 4 alternates. She's going to address the motions after jury selection is complete. Friday is opening statements. Now, there was a motion to have Mullins and Holman separation of witnesses. They must be essential party. I need to find out what that was. Defense did object to that. Timeline and different opinions based off of discovery and depositions. Audio didn't work, so summary was done. There are 2 essential, only should be 1 allowed. And Judge Gull said she would take that under advisement. Okay, so what did we learn from today? Victim 1, whenever victim 1 is referenced, it's referring to Abby. Whenever victim 2 is referenced, it's referring to Libby. And there was a new update or change in the law or whatever. So now during the trial, when they say victim 1, they will use Abby's initials. And when they say victim 2, they'll use Libby's initials. So how did this work today? 50 jurors came in. There was 4 rounds of 12 jurors each that went into the jury box. There was a 5th round with only 4 individuals. So it starts off with Judge Gull, and Judge Gull is asking, they bring 12 members into the jury box, and Judge Gull asks them, do you know anyone who testified? Okay, before that happens, they bring the 12 jurors into the jury box. Then she has the prosecution and the defense team introduce themselves. Okay? She then has each one of them rattle off their witness list. And when I say they rattled off their witness list, I mean they went so fast there's no way any of us could write it down. It was crazy. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe the prosecution has between 62 and 64 witnesses that they're going to call. The defense has 120 witnesses that they're going to call. But remember, some of what the defense has is duplicate of what the prosecution has. So, first group was 12, 6 men, 6 women. And they took their oath. They got questions from the judge. Not so much questions, but have you heard this, or, and I'll go through that. Then the attorneys, asked questions. It was very casual, actually. I liked how they did it. And I'll explain more here in a minute. She said, we're starting at 9 a.m. We're going to do lunch at noon, and we're going to end between 5 and 6 p.m. Well, we never had lunch. We had one 10-minute break. She explained to the jury that they were going to be secluded with bailiffs at all times. She stated that if they were chosen to be on the jury, that they would get more information as they left the courtroom. And they'll be given instructions on what to bring. No, honey, it's the new what do you call them? Marvel guy. I don't know. I can't, my brain is so fried I can't even think. But yes, I do have 2 colors. So some of the prosecution witnesses that I wrote down are Becky, Steve, Pat Brown, Daniel Pearson, Kathy Allen, and I think he said Jason Bedwell. Deadpool, that's the name of it. Defense, I couldn't keep up. I know that they said Todd Click, Tony Klein, Keegan Klein, Elvis Fields, Patrick Westfall, and many others. Many, many others. So then the judge read to the jury the charges. Count 1 against Abby, count 2 against Libby for the murder charge, and then 3 and 4 each count for kidnapping. And then I wrote down firmly convinced of guilt, because this was one of the key things from Nick McClellan today. So Nick McClellan started his 5-minute mini opening and said this is about three things: BG, a bullet, and two girls. So let me repeat that. It's about BG, a bullet, and two girls. So he started off by saying the girls had a day off of school. It was warm. They wanted to go to the trails and enjoy the nature. He described the Monon High Bridge and trails to the jury. He stated that Richard Allen admitted to being there and that the girls crossed the bridge. So Abby and Libby crossed, and he followed behind them, meaning BG. So Nick McClellan is verifying that BG went from the north to the south. He was never on the south side and double backed and got him going. Okay? Because it says they were followed by BG. They were kidnapped with a gun and forced down the hill. This is when he started to have his way with them. His words. But he was interrupted. So he forced the girls to cross the creek, removed their clothes, and murdered them with a knife. And I do have to say that when he was talking about forcing them down the hill, he did say at gunpoint, with a gun. So, what did we learn? BG followed the girls from the north side of the bridge to the south side of the bridge and at gunpoint took them down the hill. The assault or whatever happened took place, started on the south side where he was interrupted and forced them to cross the creek. Okay. And then killed them at the site with a knife. The bullet was found between the two bodies. RA places himself on the trail and the bridge that day. Photos, evidence, and video will be provided that RA is BG. We're going to hear confessions from Richard Allen in the fact that he killed the girls, how they were killed, and why he did it. So that was their opening statement. 5 minutes. That's all he got. So, what did the defense say? The defense said RA confessed to shooting the girls in the back, but the girls were stabbed. So he confessed to facts that were not true. Richard Allen stated that he sexually assaulted the girls and buried them in shallow graves. Yet, no assault or graves were ever found. So once again, they're telling the jury that he admitted 2 things that were not true. Um, confessed he didn't commit. Admissions and confessions not true. So they're saying 4 months prior, he was languishing in solitary confinement. Before that, he had a wife, a dog, and was arrested for a crime not committed, taken to jail, and then prison. And this prison is one of the worst places he could ever go. Then they talked about soft evidence or hard evidence. Bullet analysis, never been. The lady that is going to testify to this bullet evidence, the defense is saying that she has stated she has never been wrong. However, when she reviews work from her team members, they always do things wrong. So they're saying the analysis is subjective. The phone will show where were girls and what they were doing. Another thing that they said is that the local law enforcement kicked out the FBI and it didn't know how to interpret the phone information, the data from Libby's phone. So they're saying that information can't be trusted. They're trying to get the jury to throw out any evidence on Libby's phone. And they implied that law enforcement was not being truthful, which we knew was going to happen. Judge gives oath, tells the jury, keep an open mind, that they can take notes and ask questions of witnesses. Now, I've only heard this being done out of Arizona with the Jodi Arias trial. So I'm curious how this is going to work. I'm very curious how this is going to work. Then she asked him, do you know the attorneys or any of the witnesses? Nobody said anything about that. Juror 18 said that they had personal knowledge of the crime, reading media, yes. They have already formed an opinion. She said, can you look at the evidence? Can you take your opinion and set it aside and look at the evidence and make a decision and form an opinion from that? Juror 18 was a little weird. Have you formed an opinion? Can you set aside and look at the evidence to make a decision? And then I put, is person who was arrested automatically guilty? She asked, has anyone talked to you about the case? Have any of you been a victim of a crime yourself, family, or friends? If you have, Can you set that aside and just listen to the evidence and make a decision? Many of them said yes, but there was more than a handful that said no. Any reason you can't serve, health wise, medication, financial reasons, any reason due to the jury being sequestered. And then, now, Nick McClellan did all of the questioning for the prosecution, while Rozzy started with round 1, Baldwin did round 2, Auger did round 3, and then I think Rozzy did round 4 and 5. So Nick got up there with the 12 jurors, and it was really it was laid back. It was a conversation. He asked questions. He told them to be brutally honest. And he asked one of the jurors to define that, and she defined it as being honest without reservation. So he talked to the jury and got to know them. Asked about any questions, any problems due to the sequestration. One potential juror said that the public school was short-staffed and trying to replace him or her was going to be a burden on the school. And anytime they brought up any kind of hardship, the very next question was this: Is it going to cause a distraction if we have you serve on the jury, even though you have this going on? Will it cause a distraction with you being here to where you cannot focus on what is being presented to you evidence-wise and testimony-wise? Some said yes, some said no. This juror was diabetic and would need medicine. There was another juror. There were actually a lot of jurors, potential jurors, that were caregivers for family members, elderly, children, with autism, things like that. And the question was, now the one juror was diabetic, and they asked, can you focus on the trial and not that? Because he said he had to eat or drink every couple of hours. And Judge Gull said they've had that before. They'll work with him. And he said as long as they'll work with him, it wouldn't be a problem. Then he talked to them about murder. What kind of evidence would you expect to see? That was a very big question from the prosecution. Okay? And he would ask several jurors, what do you expect to see? DNA. Do you expect to see this as evidence? Does DNA have to be in every case? He was asking them this question. So, if DNA is not present in the case, is that okay? Then he said, who says there has to be phone data? That confused me. That confused me. Continued the conversation with what evidence they expected to see. Talked about reasonable doubt. Must be firmly convinced. That's where that comes in. If you are firmly convinced that these things happen, you are to give a guilty verdict. And then he said about the state meeting its burden, weight of evidence and amount of evidence will depend. You must be firmly convinced, don't know facts. Can you tell what happened? Okay, so then he goes into this example. Let's say you have a puddle on the ground. You come home and you have a puddle on the ground. And then you have a puddle on the ground and 2 sticks. And then you have a puddle on the ground, 2 sticks, and 2 pieces of coal. And then you come home, you have a puddle on the ground, 2 sticks, 2 pieces of coal, and a carrot. And he kept going on like that and adding things, right? So after the carrot was, I put that somewhere else. Oh, a top hat. And then after the top hat was a name tag with Frosty on it. He says, at what point could you firmly confirm what happened? So what point were you firmly convinced what happened at that scene? Some said the carrot part. Some said the top hat part. And then his next question was, how many of you would need more than after the name tag of Frosty to be able to be firmly convinced that he melted? There was a couple people that said that they did, and that's fine. But by doing that, he got the jurors to explain to them how early they came to be firmly convinced that it was the melting of Frosty. And he got to see what jurors would need the least amount of evidence and what jurors would need the most amount of evidence. That's why he did that. It was actually kind of smart of him to do that. Then he talked about testimony evidence. What you look for, what made witnesses credible. And everything that we say on what makes witnesses credible, the potential jurors said same thing. Consistent statements. I have on here juror 18 was he the psychic guy? I think he was. Juror 19 needs absolute proof. Oh, and then he got into, if a witness is nervous, are you going to look at that to determine consistency? Are you going to look at their movements, their statements, and put it all together? Or are you just going to say that he was nervous and he wasn't consistent? And then he asked, why would somebody lie? You got the answers, to protect himself, to protect others, things like that. This was a big question for the prosecution. Would you give Ellie more credibility because they are a law enforcement officer and what they do? And a lot of them said no, because law enforcement are people. They make mistakes, things like that. Okay. Couple of them said yes, but not because they were just because they were law enforcement. They said yes because they had skills for specialized areas in law enforcement, and that he could understand. But that was a big one. Would you give Ellie more credibility because they are law enforcement and what they do? Then the next question he asked was, does anybody have an issue with passing judgment on others? And there were some that said yes, absolutely. Most of them said no. Then he asked, if you determined the facts and if the burden was met and you were firmly convinced, will you vote guilty? And they said yes. Then he said, is everyone comfortable with being a juror on this case? And I don't know how many times in the four groups they said no. These people did not want to be jurors on this case. It was crazy. Every hardship that you can possibly imagine, they threw out there and made it known that they did not want to be on this jury. Now, some of them had really valid excuses, and I'll get to that. So then the defense got up and they wanted to talk about human behavior. What do you expect to see from someone who did nothing wrong behaviorally? Let's see. What do you expect to see from someone who did something wrong behaviorally? And they said they'd be nervous, say inconsistent things. You'd see a change in habits, personality. They would avoid places or avoid the area of the crime and police. Then he talked about flight. Now, this was Rosie that was doing this one. Taking off, disappearing. Is that a sign of guilt? What about destroying evidence? If somebody destroyed evidence, would that be a sign of guilt? What if they flee and cooperate? Do you have to cooperate to be not guilty? This was questions that they were asking the jurors. What about your right to remain silent? What if Richard Allen chooses not to testify? How are you going to see that? And there was quite a few people that said, well, if I'm innocent, I'm going to get up and say I'm innocent. to anybody and everybody that'll listen to me. And then they wanted to know, why would someone confess falsely? And then the other question was, how would someone depressed be impacted? Why say something that's not true? And that was a big thing with them because they know they have this hurdle with these confessions. Okay. So they're already trying to put it in the jury's mind that there were reasons that he confessed, but it wasn't true. What he was saying was not true. Okay. Burden of proof. Describes burden of doubt, reasonable doubt, suspicion, great weight of evidence. Versus clear and convincing evidence. And then he asked, is there anyone you don't trust? Which I thought was weird. Like unemployment, getting benefits, protocols. Can you be critical? He asked. So during these rounds, each side got 30 minutes to question the potential jurors. Like I said, each round had 12 potential jurors. Okay. After those 30 minutes were up, the prosecution went first, then the defense, and then both teams separated and had a little conference. And then McClellan and Rozzi always went in front of Judge Gull and they whispered to her, right? And talked about who to keep and who to dismiss. Okay. So then she announces who's going to be kept and who is dismissed. The first round, 6 jurors were kept and 6 were dismissed. Now, one of the biggest questions was the pay. That was one of the biggest hardships for a lot of these potential jurors. Okay. Judge Gull said that for the first week, they get $80 a day. And then after the first week, it goes up to $90 a day. All right. So group 2, I got a little more technical after I knew what was going on. So they gave us their juror numbers. Number 1, health reasons. Hardship for health reasons. Juror number 51, police officer. Because they asked, do you have any law enforcement in your family? Is there any health issues, medications, money problems, anything? Juror 45 said his cousin is in law enforcement. 48. Now, I did make sure that I put this down. So if I do not tell you that they had any social media or any coverage from the case. That means these people are saying they don't know anything about this case. So juror number 48 heard information about the case. Juror 13, media. And then as soon as you said, well, I've seen media on it. And the judge said, well, I don't want to know the specifics. But what I want to know is, can you set what you saw aside and directly look at the evidence in the case and make a verdict? Some of them said yes. Some of them said no. And in this case, juror 13 said yes, they could. Then there was another juror. She was a woman. She was worried about the sequestration. She had things going on in her life that would distract her, and she didn't feel that she could just pay attention and focus on the evidence and be a member of the jury. 27, grandson is autistic. No one else to watch him. Can set aside and focus if need be. But he really didn't have anyone else to watch his grandson. So if it were up to him, he would not be on the jury. 36 was a prior juror. 8 said motive don't have to provide. Okay. And she said yes. DNA in every case. Jurors 45 and 8 said no. Do you have to see a weapon? Juror 48 said no. 29 said no. 45 said no. 47 said yes. Then he talked about who has to prove beyond all evidence. So basically what he said is, you all watch, how many of you watch CSI and all these law shows? And a lot of them raise their hand. And he says, well, in these shows, you have all of the perfect scenarios. You have all the evidence, all the information, but that's not how the real world works. There's a lot of times where you don't have DNA, or you don't have a weapon. Can you not have that evidence and still be firmly convinced in his guilt? Some said yes, some said no. Or actually, no, none of them said that they had to prove beyond all evidence. None of them said that. Then he asked them, am I an attorney? Do you believe I'm an attorney? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, well, why? And a lot of the answers were because Judge Gull wouldn't let you in here and talk to us if you weren't an attorney. I got a kick out of that one. Then he asked him, is the burden too low on the prosecution? And some said yes, and a lot of them said no. Then he talked to him about credibility of witnesses. Several of these jurors in the second group said they won't focus on evidence versus situation at home or whatever hardship they had going on at the time, that they did not want to be jurors. Excluded evidence was another thing that Nick McClellan brought up. Can you accept that, or do you have to see it? Meaning, Do you have to see the DNA? Do you have to see the weapon? Do you have to see this evidence? Do you have to see that evidence in order to firmly um, confirm that he's guilty? Okay, then Baldwin got up and this is a little kind of a moment in the jury selection. He stood behind Richard Allen and he said, "What if he's innocent?" Well, objection from the state. Um, then he came back and he said, "Is it possible he's really innocent?" Objection from the state. So then he changed to confessions. Um, are you bothered by confessions? Can you overcome the confessions? Was his question to them. Um, what about being very critical against the police? Does that bother you? That was one of his questions. So in that group, 4 were accepted and 8 were dismissed. So this started the trend because we knew right off the bat that those jurors that got dismissed did not want to be there and did not want to be on the jury because they flat out said so. Group 3. Juror number 34, health surgery. Didn't want to be there. He needed to have surgery due to his health. I put a no to him right away. Juror number 54, watched social media, and her hardship was her family, her kids. Juror number 40, watched social media. She had a family. She had never been away from her kids. And that was her hardship. She didn't know if she was going to be able to focus enough because she had never been away from her kids. Juror number 37 had watched media reports about this. His was a financial hardship. He is the only individual working, and without that financial income, he could not make enough money with the jury payment to keep his family afloat. Juror number 9 watched media. She had an accident and had memory issues. So she flat out said that she did not feel that she would be a good fit for this jury because of her memory issues. And even if she took notes and relied on others and their notes, she didn't know if she could make the best decision. Number 14, juror number 14 was having surgery. He was in a lot of pain and needed to have the surgery, couldn't wait. So I put a no by the woman with the memory issues. I put a no by him. 40 juror number 43. So they had talked to one of their coworkers. Um they had they had some kind of relationship with somebody in law enforcement. They flat out said that um, they already formed an opinion and could not set that opinion aside. Juror number 44, hardship for work. This person worked for hospice. She was the only one that knew how to do her job, and she had already started to try to train other people, and it was not going well. So she did not want to be a juror because of that, because her work was too important, which I agree with her. Um, and since she couldn't train anybody, um, she didn't want to be on the jury. Juror number 7, he was the only one with a job, financial hardship, could not survive on the jury pay for the time of the trial, did not want to be on the jury. Number 3, he or she had a work hardship. They watched social media. They formed an opinion and would not change their mind. Number 5, juror number 5, they have a judgment on them, and already have judgment. Note from doctor. Oh, they've already formed an opinion on whether he was innocent or guilty, um, and was not going to change their mind, and also had a note from their doctor. That's what it was. 52, formed opinion, can set it aside. Um, did have issues with LE. And needed to have surgery. So that was from group 3. So the defense was asking them, can you look at disturbing evidence such as photos and facts? Can you look at pictures, at these horrendous pictures, and find RA is not guilty? That was the defense's conversation with some of the potential jurors. The defense tried to say there was no motive, and the state objected right away. And they came back, and the defense changed the question right away. So McClellan did shut that down big time. So in group 3, there was one female accepted. Everyone else was rejected. And that was juror 54. Group 4. Okay. Juror number 30 did see media, stated that even though they saw the media, they could set that aside and just look at the evidence and make a decision on innocent or guilt. Did have ties to law enforcement and did have a medical issue. Number 17 has prior knowledge of the case and cannot be partial, meaning he's already formed opinion on this case of guilt or innocent, and no matter what they showed him as evidence, he wasn't going to change his mind. Number 11, anxiety. She was a caregiver, and she was not able to make it or make arrangements for anyone to be the caregiver of her loved one. That was her hardship. 41, served on jury in a civil matter. Number 50 was a male, had type 1 diabetes. He was the professor. No. Yes, he was the professor. Career hardship. And what he stated is he's got 15 students that he teaches the class to. If he doesn't teach the class, they don't get the credit. They don't pass the class. They're in limbo. And he could not get anybody else to replace him. Juror number 31, no responses to the judge's questions, meaning everything was fine with this individual. Juror number 32 didn't drive. She just kept saying she didn't drive. She got a ride today, but in the future she could not get a ride. Juror number 16, no concerns. So no worries about sequestration or any of that. Didn't have anything with law enforcement. Didn't know anybody. Juror 24 said that their cousin had been attacked. But they could put aside that and look at the evidence. Juror number 55, job won't accommodate. Listen to this. Job will not accommodate jury duty and being sequestered. Plus, he had a civil lawsuit. So if he didn't pay this money back for his civil lawsuit, he would be in big trouble. Juror number 47, male. He had already formulated an opinion. He could not set that aside, would not change his mind, and would not look at the evidence. So, the only two that got accepted... Oh, and juror number 50, who was the professor, they asked him, is it possible for you to be a jury during the day and teach your class at night? And he said, it is possible. Well, then he had one question about sequestration, and it was, can we go to church services on Sunday? And Judge Gull said, yes, but you must go with a bailiff. So he was put on the jury, and then number 16 was another male with no concerns, no questions, no hardships. So he was also put on the jury. Then we got to the group of 4. So we already had 13 jurors. We had our 12 regular jurors, and we had our 1 alternate. We needed 3 more alternates, and we're like, what is the chance that there's 4 people here, we'll get 3 more alternates, and jury selection will be done in 1 day? Well, that didn't happen. Juror number 28, formed opinion. Also has medical issues. Could not set aside his opinion and look at the evidence to determine guilt or innocence. Juror number 12, female. She's the primary care for her 3-year-old. Her husband was going out of town on business, and there was no one to take care of the child. Juror number 10 had seen media reports, was the primary caregiver of her 88-year-old grandmother, and did not have anybody else to replace her to care for her loved one. And then number 26 was a male. he did not want to be on the jury because of medical issues. So during the questioning of the prosecution and the defense, juror number 12, who was the primary caregiver of the 3-year-old, asked if she could find somebody else to care for her son to be an alternate. And she said she could try. And they peppered her with, both teams, the prosecution and defense, peppered her with a lot more questions. Same questions they asked all the other groups, but they specifically asked her to answer these questions. And in the end, they did choose her as an alternate. So, what happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, we go back in and we need 2 alternate jurors. They have 50 new people coming in to find 2 alternates. This should go pretty quick. I would say within an hour, well, within the first 2 hours of us being there, we should have 2 alternates. Then what's going to happen is Judge Gull said that she is going to hear all of the defense's motions that they put out last week and the one the week before, the 1 or 2 the week before. So we're going to sit through hearings. And she's going to make decisions on all those. And Wednesday, the attorneys get a day to work on whatever they want. Thursday, they're going to bring the jurors back into the Allen County Courthouse, the ones that are on the jury and the alternates, swear them in, and then they will be traveling to whatever hotel they are being put up in. Friday, we will start in Delphi with opening statements. So things are moving along. I never thought that we would have a jury in day 1, in the first 50 people. So right now we have 8 women and 6 men, because we have a total of 14 jurors. We still need 2 more alternates. All right, I know you guys have been put questions in. I'm going to ask you, starting now, to please re-put your question in so that I don't have to scroll all the way back up. I'm only going to take a few minutes to answer questions because I've been up since 4:30 this morning and I'm exhausted. I need to go to sleep and I got to get up at 4 tomorrow. So, let's see what we can find here. I can't believe this is actually going to happen. I know. It's a long time coming. Absolutely. Yeah, Judge Gull is not messing around. She is all go. Full steam ahead. You're right. She absolutely is. No, Rick's daughter was not there that I know of. Even his wife was not there. How did he act today? Okay. So from where I was sitting, I got a direct line down. So I saw Rozzy the best, Baldwin here and there, Auger a little bit, and Richard Allen a little bit. But when all of the attorneys would get up, especially towards the end of the day, when all the attorneys got up and went by the judge's desk, I was so exhausted. I was falling asleep when they were asking the jurors questions. So I was rocking in my chair like this, and I looked straight ahead and I locked eyes with Richard Allen, and he saw me rocking and I stopped, and then he started rocking. It was really weird. Really weird. But he looked good. He was dressed in a nice shirt, khaki pants, hair was trimmed up. Um, he looked good. Let's see. The only family members that I saw were Abby's grandparents, the Erskines. That's the only ones I saw. Yeah, I've got the angel pins. So yeah, we'll have those. Um it's not a joke. Why are you giving Jinx a hard time? Were any jurors seated anyway despite hardship? Yeah, there was a couple that had hardships and they were still seated. They tried to get as many as they could dismissed, but there were a few of them that, were giving good answers and they wanted them on the jury based off of their answer. They put them on the jury. I'm hoping that, well, we've got eight. A new station alert has arrived. 8 women and 6 men. So far, so good. From everybody that was chosen, we expected them to be chosen. I mean, as the prosecution and defense were asking their questions and we were hearing the answers, when the defense and prosecution was all huddled up, we were whispering back and forth, they're going to keep this one, that one, that one, and we got really good and picked them, pretty well. You kind of knew who they wanted and who they didn't want. I don't know if they get their pay taxed. I don't think so because it's such a small amount. I'm not sure. How would you say Nick performed in front of jurors as opposed to the defense? I think I'm going to be very honest with you guys. And I told you I was going to do this. Based off of what I heard today from Nick, I'm worried. If this is all about BG, a bullet, and what was the third thing I said from Nick in his opening? BG, bullet, and 2 girls. And the way he was asking the jurors, if you don't have DNA, and if you don't have a weapon, and if you don't have this, can you still firmly be convinced of his guilt? And I'm like, please don't tell me that they just have this bullet and these confessions. That was my exact thought. And I'm like, if he only has the bullet and the confessions, we're in trouble. Now, was he hiding things? He only got 5 minutes. He had to make, the most out of 5 minutes. Will we hear more about what's going on and what they have in the opening statement? I sure hope so. And they better have a lot more or we're in trouble. His performance otherwise, he did good. He was very charismatic. He got sociable with the jurors and talked to them like people, and responded to what they were saying to him and the hardships, and apologizing and sorry for that you're going through this and whatever. I thought both sides did very good. Did they ask the jury about their thoughts? No, they did not say anything about satanic cults. Absolutely not. I don't know if they told the families to stay home or if the families just chose to. No, that's another thing. There's a mixture of ages. So that's good. That's good. Um yes, each one did have a mini opening statement. Go back and watch the stream. I did talk about what all was in that. Um this is big, Lollipop. He was interrupted. Not on the bridge, on the hills going down. So basically, what Nick McClellan is saying is that the girls started crossing the bridge. Bridge guy came from the north side of the bridge, followed behind them, took the gun, kidnapped them by telling them to go down the hill. Then the assault started, and he was doing whatever he was doing, and he was interrupted on the south side by Brad Weber's house. The private driveway, the steep hills, somewhere in that area between getting off the bridge and going down the hills past the private drive. He was interrupted and he forced the girls across the creek and then killed them by stabbing them. Let's see here. I do too. I sure am hoping that Nick's got more. 5 minutes. Oh yeah, the families are witnesses. They can't be there. Thanks, Rescue. And I just got to say thank you to Rescue. I had a meltdown at the end of the day today. I could not find my key fob. I either left it in the bathroom or dropped it on the floor, and the courthouse was closed. And she got me back to the courthouse, and I knocked on the door, and of course, it's locked. And the security guard came out and said, Miss, can I help you? And I said, yeah, I think I dropped my key fob in the courthouse. And he's like, 2 key fobs joined together? And I'm like, yep, that would be it. He's like, come on inside. And then they were picking on me because I had a Packer keychain with the 2 key fobs. They were just like, Packers, huh? I'm like, well, I'm from Wisconsin. And he goes, oh, okay. Gotta love them cheese curds. I'm like, absolutely. So thank you to Rescue All the Dogs for helping me today. Let's see here. We don't know who he was interrupted by or what. As far as we know, the girls were not assaulted. Now, is that what he was in the middle of doing or starting when he got interrupted? That could be. Love them cheese curds. Go to bed, Marv. Yes, absolutely. I am going to bed. I'm getting up at 4 tomorrow and leaving a little early. So I will set up a live again tomorrow for 8:30. I'm saying 8:30 right now. I'll set it up when I get home tomorrow. And the only reason I'm going to set it up tomorrow is in case something happens and court runs later than what it did today with the hearings, and I have to push it back a little bit. So, but you can bank on it between 8:30 and 9. I should have a live going every night. Well, tomorrow night and then again on Friday night for sure, since Wednesday and Thursday are going to be our down days while they get their stuff figured out. If you can, share the stream out, like the stream, put a comment below the stream, and if you have the ability, please consider donating. Thank you, Vid Inquiries, for donating. Hop aboard, wave. With driving an hour and a half away, I'm using gas money and stuff, and I could use some help while I'm here for gas and groceries for the month. So thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow with Day 2's update. Have a good night. Bye. Thank you for watching Beyond the Evidence. Today, I gave you my own opinions and analysis, but I always encourage you to do your own research and form your own conclusions. If you're interested in true crime and want to join me on this journey of discovery, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of my uploads. If you'd like to support the channel, join our membership, and if you have any suggestions for cases that you want me to cover, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and remember, justice matters. This is Beyond the Evidence, and I'll see you in the next video.